I tried some wines that made me think that wine could be also an object of contemplation, or wine could be more than what I thought before. I do the wines I want to do. I do the wines I want to drink myself. So I have this cuvée named Playing with Fire. The name is from a song by Godflesh.
I love Godflesh.
Yeah,
Amazing. So your champagne is named after a Godflesh song. I just want to be clear.
exactly.
Continue. God bless you.
Yeah, yeah.
Welcome to Vita Brevis, a podcast about business, art, life, and death. I'm your host, Carlos Cardenas. Here we explore how business, creativity, and philanthropy intersect through the lives of remarkable people. I talk with entrepreneurs and community leaders who are passionate collectors and visionary patrons to discover how art shapes their work, purpose, and legacy. Because life is short, but art is forever. Hello and welcome back to Vita Brevis. Today's guest is Jérôme Lefèvre, a man whose journey to the vineyards of his native Champagne was anything but traditional. Born into a grape farming family, Jérôme initially spent his career trying to escape the land. He moved to Paris, earned a master's in contemporary art from the Sorbonne, and became a prominent voice in the scene, serving as an editor for magazines like Archistorm and Crash, and later as the artistic director for the Art Paris Art Fair. But the family business eventually pulled him back, though he chose to do this on his own terms. Influenced by the DIY politics of hardcore punk and the aesthetics of artists like Raymond Pettibon, Jérôme returned to his family's parcels with a radical vision. In 2013, he launched Delalot, followed by Maison Jérôme Lefevre in 2020. He doesn't use tractors, he uses horses. He doesn't use chemicals, he uses his hands. From naming cuvées after Godflesh songs to collaborating with artists like Stephen Shearer on his labels, Jérôme treats winemaking not as an industrial process, but as an experimental art form. We're diving into the crossover between thrash metal, contemporary art, and why the most punk thing you can do today is to work the soil by hand. Jérôme, we met in Paris many years ago. This was probably in the early 2000s. I had just
Yeah.
curated a show at Hervé Leeuwenbroek, and you were a journalist at the time,
Yeah.
as I recall. Tell me about those early days in the art scene in Paris.
I was responsible for the art page into the magazine Crash, the
Okay.
fashion magazine made by Franck Perrin and Armel Le Turc. And at the same time, I was writing on Archistorm. So I
Yeah.
wrote in the two magazines. And also, I wrote some things for Spoon, for Art Press, for things like this. But I was, yes, I was writing, and I did some exhibitions also. Yeah,
As a curator,
yeah,
what made you sort of pivot away from that and to get back into what you're doing now as a winemaker?
yeah. This was a long process, but in fact, I grew up in this. I mean, my mother and my grandfather and my grandfather, they used to work at the parcels and to sell the grapes for Maison, like Pommery, like Duval-Leroy. Perhaps you know. We were selling the grapes for Grande Maison de Champagne in Épernay, Reims. And it was kind of a shitty thing because my mother didn't live correctly from that. I grew up in the idea to escape from this. It was very difficult because it was too small to make a living from that. In fact, it was really a hard work. So in fact, I did all I can to escape from that.
Did you grow up in the region in Champagne?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so this was a part of your family life, clearly. I mean, to a degree, it was the family business. You
yeah,
lived in Champagne.
yeah.
So this was a very ubiquitous industry, I guess, as I think a lot of, children are want to do. You want to rebel against that. So initially you wanted to get away from the wine business and the champagne aura.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and in fact, the only thing I was interested in was music. My father used to, he didn't live from that, but he had a passion for old motorcycle to restore them. Motorcycles like terreau, like old Belgian and French motorcycle from just after the war. The bikers with the shoppers, things like this.
Yeah.
And they went at the farm to learn with my father how to do perfect paintings. I was kind of the age of 6 or 7, and at that time, I've been given by some of those guys records by AC/DC and Deep Purple, ZZ Top also. I've been very, very marked by this and very impressed by also visually, you know, the long hair, the instruments, things like this. So I've been really deep in that kind of in those musics, and this totally changed my ideas about music, and I felt very deep in that thing in punk and heavy metal. And in fact, I was just interested in that for a long time.
So your dad was, correct me if I'm wrong, essentially involved in the sort of biker community, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they were restoring and customizing motorcycles. And, music is a part of this culture as well. And
yeah.
like you said, it was essentially, I would guess, heavy metal. What era is this? Is this like in the 80s?
Yes, the early 80s.
Okay. So you got into punk and metal via the biking sort of tradition or subculture, I should say. And that
Yes,
led to an interest in, I guess, the broader aesthetics around this culture? The look, the feel. You mentioned, oh, I don't know, the long hair, the black leather.
yes,
Yeah.
sure, sure. Because I was really into the record covers and things like this, because each band had a logo, and each logo were kind of in terms of graphic design is very very creative time. The covers of Iron Maiden
Yeah.
and bands like this, it's very beautiful. Metallica or Megadeth, things like Slayer. There is an aesthetic for sure.
Do you remember the first time you saw Raymond Pettibon's work?
I didn't know when I saw the first time.
But it was through the Black Flag covers, I imagine.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Sure, 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 sure. Because I thanks to Metallica, you know, they were totally fan of the Misfits.
Yeah.
And through the Misfits, I discovered the Clash, things like this, and also Discharge. But when I discovered the Misfits, I also discovered the hardcore punk scene, which includes, of course, Black Flag, who created the thing, and also the Bad Brains.
I recently rediscovered DRI. Remember them?
DRI, I love them. I love them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fun stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
was perfect because this is really the crossover thing, like Suicide, or they were mixing thrash metal and hardcore punk, and this was like perfect for me.
You told me once that you had read an article, and I imagine it was through a Black Flag context where they were talking about Raymond Pettibon as an artist, not just a guy who was illustrating, album covers. He was
Yeah,
exhibiting in galleries and things like this at the time, you know.
exactly.
And was this the bridge to contemporary art?
Yes, because I was into this aesthetic of hardcore punk and heavy metal, and especially the extreme metal scene. And I was only interested by that, and but I realized that to escape from my kind of the family thing, I had to be better at school and try to enter the college, what we call le lycée in France. So I tried to get better results at school. This was very important for me as I was only interested in music. I did the music option, so I had kind of a 6 or no, even 7 hours by week of music. So I had a very good teacher who introduced me to composers like Ravel. like Poulenc, things like this, and also Philip Glass, things like this. And I learned how to understand Bach, Mozart, these kind of things. Everybody knows Picasso, everybody knows Mozart, but when you understand how it's made and how intelligent it is in terms of composition, suddenly you know how big it is. So there was that, and I saw in a Art Press magazine
Yeah.
a report of 5 pages about Raymond Pettibon. I didn't knew anything about art contemporain. I was just interested in pictures, and I was very surprised to find that in an art magazine, and in fact, I realized that that guy I knew from the flyers and the T-shirts and the Black Flag and the Minutemen iconography, and suddenly I realized that that guy shows his work in contemporary art museums, in contemporary art galleries. I never read about that contemporary art. So in fact, I told myself if museums of contemporary art and galleries of contemporary art show his work, that thing should be very, very interesting. So in fact, I decided to see what it is in reality. So there was a advertisement for gallery exhibitions at the end of the magazine. So in fact, I wrote down some addresses, and I went in Paris to see in reality what is an art gallery.
And you were living in Champagne at the time.
Yeah, yeah, I was in Château Thierry. Yes.
So you went to Paris to go see some art shows.
Yeah. I used to go in Paris, especially to see concerts. And in fact, that time I went, I opened the first gallery. It was in the Marais. It was, there was an old art dealer. I asked him if the gallery was open. He told me yes. So I entered and I saw a painter with two assistants installing paintings in a white cube. I found this guy very, very open-minded because I was with my long hair and the perfecto, and I was not very confident with myself, and I was very impressed by that. But he was very, very open, and it was at the time also I was kind of really into this punk thing we say about don't be confident with adults.
Don't trust anyone over 40.
Exactly. I was thinking like this. This thing was very um, it appeared to me like something very, very positive.
So did this begin the sort of chapter of your life where you become a Parisian and you become a journalist and a curator and this sort of thing?
Yeah,
What I'm trying to get to is at one point did you decide to kind of go back to your roots and to return to the land, to the terroir, as we say,
yeah,
and sort of come back to your family traditions of making champagne and wine?
yeah. There was two things. First, my mother was about to retire, and we didn't know what to do with the some parcel she had because she was not confident with the neighbors, and she was kind of not also confident with her family. So there was nobody to take care of the parcels. So this was a question, but neither my brother and I wanted to do that. In the art world, let's say, I tried some wines, some Burgundy wines that made me think that wine could be also an object of contemplation, or wine could be more than what I thought before. I had no introduction to wine through my mother, in fact. So I was kind of naked about wine. I knew nothing about wine,
Now,
and
when you say sorry, when you say that she had parcels, was she just growing grapes? She wasn't producing wine.
yeah, she was cutting grapes.
Okay, so she's a farmer essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah, not a
exactly.
winemaker.
No, no,
Okay.
no, 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 no winemaking. And I realized that wine could be very, very interesting. So uh, I told myself I could take care of the parcels, but not doing only this, but I could create something. I told myself I could do this if I do a wine and if this wine is organic. Those were the two first conditions. And the third condition was to do it exclusively, entirely by hand. I mean, no machine, for different reasons that are kind of, let's say, political or a lot of things because,
I think it's fair to use that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think this comes from punk. Because through punk fanzines, I heard about Crass. Do you know that band?
I love Cress. Yeah, the British band.
Exactly. And I was into also these bands, Crass, Discharged, anarcho-punk things. In some fanzines, there was things about being vegetarian. I've been vegetarian at the time,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
and other things. And I read about Henri David Thoreau. And when I read really Henri David Thoreau, and later on Fukuoka, who invented agriculture naturelle, natural agriculture, and it's from natural agriculture that comes the organic agriculture. And I was really into that, and this is also why I decided to work with no machine, and also doing the things by myself, not asking to banks to buy big machines to work the land and big
Yeah.
machines to do the wine. And
Yeah.
I tried to, and I did with, as we say, a pot ficelle in French. You know, little
Yeah.
by little. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Bootstrapping.
exactly.
Thank you for listening to Vita Brevis. If you know someone who would enjoy this conversation, please share it with them. A follow or review also goes a long way in helping us grow. Thank you. And remember, life is short, but art is forever.
Well, it's really interesting you mentioned this because I recall there was a time in France when the traditions had become, oh my goodness, a little bit boring and of another generation. And I'm trying to put a timeline to it, but there was a time when Iñaki had opened up Chateaubriand in
Hmm.
Paris, the restaurant, and the whole natural wine phenomena started to pick up. I had the impression that there was a certain younger generation that was interested in these traditions, but they wanted to do it themselves very naturally by hand, with a certain ethos and values. And
Exactly.
ultimately, there was like a very punk rock, punk in the political sense, more than
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
cultural
yeah, yeah.
sense.
Totally.
And and you started seeing that in Paris, in the food, and in the wine, and at some point, you started even seeing it in the coffee and things like this, you know? And it just for me, it was kind of a renaissance. I'm trying to remember when this all happened. It was in the early 2000s, but all of these things sort of happened together, and yeah, there were values there. There were essentially
Sure.
political values that sort of came through, and we're going to work with our hands, and we're not going to use pesticides, and we're not going to need tons of capital, and we're going to do it ourselves. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And we are individuals responsible of the world we live in, and we are very actors of it. So this is why I don't want to participate something I'm not into. So I really want to work because this is my thing, and I really want to do it exactly the way I want, and to work in the sense of the world I trust in, and the model I really trust in.
So, getting back to wines here specifically, and we talked about how this uh, change in ethos led to this sort of new wave of French food and of of winemaking that is ironically very, very traditional. This is the way our ancestors made wine hundreds of years ago, or even 100 years ago.
Yes,
Um,
because it was the good manner. It was the good way.
yeah, yeah. So tell us, as a sort of a natural wine primer, and it's a term that I'm still trying to figure out. And it's not as prevalent in the US as it is in Europe. It's starting. What is a natural wine versus an organic wine versus a traditional wine?
Uh, Organic is something very young. To be honest, working organic is not doing exactly the same as our ancestors used to do. This appeared in the 70s in reaction to the chemicals and the big tractors and things like this. Thanks also to Fukuoka, he realized that he was able to have very good production in terms of amount of production without machines, without chemicals. But he was supposed to use chemicals. I think it was also an ecological conscience. They realized that we are going too far into chemicals, into the destruction of the land and things like this. And not into the EP aspect, but really into we consider this is bad for the soil, this is bad for the trees, this is bad for the sea, this is bad for air. And in fact, organic is producing like it's really agriculture, so it's really producing things, but without chemicals. You can use things that are into the nature and not transformed. That means you can also use dangerous things like essential oils. It could be very dangerous. We use sometimes things that are dangerous, but without OGM and without chemicals. This is organic agriculture. Then natural is something different because the father of agriculture naturelle, Fukuoka, and for him, it was like if something grows naturally, it's something that goes by itself. It's very difficult and I think impossible for wine because the vines are very, very fragile. You need to do, you need to do pruning to take care of it and to educate it. Otherwise, you don't have any grapes. When you have vigne sauvage,
Hmm.
you only have grapes each 3 years. The nature of the vine is to spread, to go. It's not to produce fruits. So it produce fruits, but you have to control it. And vin nature is that you try to. It's kind it reinforce the natural aspect into the organic thing. For me, you can't do natural wine without being organic. You have organic, you have biodynamic, and then you have the natural way.
Tell us a little bit more about where you position yourself. I want to hear more about your brand. So you have Maison Jérôme Lefevre, but there's also a champagne called a Delalot.
Yeah,
So is it both? Tell us about your company a little.
I began with Delalot because Delalot was. I started with that harvest was in 2013. I began to do the organic conversion in 2009. And you need at least 3 years to be organic. The first harvest that was certified organic was 2013, and I did my first wine that year. First harvest, because the process of a champagne is 3 years. So what you harvest in 2013 will give you the first cuvée in 2016. So I started with Delalot with a very, very terroir approach. Terroir is to express the best of the blend, each blend. We have mainly Pinot Meunier, Pinot Noir, and Chardonnay in Champagne. So the expression of that, and also the expression of these blends on each typical soil. And you express the soil and the grapes, but with low intervention. This was what I did with Delalot. So with that very terroir approach. And then I did Maison Jérôme Lefevre in 2020 for different reasons. First, I had the opportunity to get more parcels in another village named Montbonneuil. I'm very proud of it because it's one of the best and one of also the most beautiful coteaux in Champagne. So I had the opportunity to do new wines, but I didn't want it to do a lot of different cuvées with Delalot because with Delalot there's a range of 4 cuvées plus a millésime sometimes, and I have already more demands on those cuvées that I could produce. I mean, it was based on half an hectare only, so I am able to do only 2 or 3 cuvées maximum, but I'm not able to do the 4 cuvées each harvest. So it was kind of frustrating for me and not to produce those 4 cuvées the way I wanted. And in fact, I didn't saw myself in 20 or 25 years doing only those 4 cuvées. So I decided to keep Delalot untouched with this very terroir approach, those 4 cuvées, but to create with the new parcels, new wines, but also a new system. So I decided with Jérôme Lefèvre to do at each harvest 1 champagne and 1 coteau champenois, and not having a range of cuvées, but each time new wines, one-shot wines, to continue to experiment.
Interesting. So I'm looking on your website. I see, what is it, like 5 champagnes? And when you say coteaux, these are wines, right?
Yes, what we call coteau champenois. Coteau champenois is an appellation, another appellation
Uh-huh.
in Champagne. You have Champagne, you have coteau champenois, and coteau champenois are still wines from Champagne. I
Oh,
mean,
they're not sparkling.
they are not sparkling. They are white or red, but not sparkling.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm very renowned for that because I love, I do a lot of coteaux champenois, and I'm quite renowned with my coteaux. I do them not in the conventional way. And in fact, I love to do that because, you know, champagne is very sophisticated, and you have the alcoholic fermentation, but you have also another fermentation into the bottle that creates the sparkling, and you have also a disgorgement. You have different steps, and at each one of those steps, you take a distance from the primary matter. It's very elegant, very beautiful champagne, but in fact, what I want to do with Coteau Champenois is that it's just fermented grapes, and I keep very close from the primary matter. This is why I love to do Coteau Champenois.
And you say that you essentially don't repeat yourself. There's gonna be new wines instead of sort of recycling previous wines to fit the
Exactly.
experiment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because I was very interested in creating the perfect Blanc de Noir, the perfect Rosé de Saignée, and all those wines by Delalot were parcellars. But I wanted to continue to experiment and to do new wines.
Well, let's talk about the business of the industry. How many bottles do you produce a year, for example? And compare that to a traditional winemaker.
Yes, I produce a bit less for different reasons. I am first. I am organic, and being organic, you often have a bit less.
Yield, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, and in fact, I don't know how to say rendement.
Is that yield?
Yeah, yeah, yes, the amount of what we produce. In fact, in organic, it's always a bit less, and also I'm very interested in the concentration into the grapes because I want to do wines that are really on the fruit, very powerful, and this I only get when it's very concentrated, and I'm not interested in having walls of grapes. You know, I'm more interested in the quality than in the quantity. So the maximum I do is for the moment in 1 hectare, 5,000 bottles of champagne and between 600 and 2,000 of Coteau Champenois, red and white. So it's 5,000 champagne and maximum 2,000 bottles of Coteau Champenois. It's very small. Also, the domain is very, very tiny. So of course, there is not a lot of bottles, but it's already something important. Yeah, yeah.
I would imagine the rarity also affects the value of the wine. I mean, these wines are not cheap. I saw them. I mean,
No,
yeah.
no, because in fact, they are not cheap because it costs a lot. Not being organic. It's not about being organic, but the way I work with no machines, very very all by hand. This has a value in terms of also in human terms. We are two people to work this hectare. The vines require a lot of attention because it's kind of a garden, and sometimes it's as we work without machines. Sometimes it's between gardening and the Olympic Games. I mean, physically, it could be also very difficult, and also the wine is made the same way, with a lot of attention. Some are very complicated to do, and for some also I take some risks. Especially my Coteau Champenois are expensive. Let's say a Coteau Champenois has to be a Coteau Champenois, and if you taste this wine and you are surprised because how it's a Savagnin. This is not exactly what I'm supposed to do. But I do the wines I want to do. I do the wines I want to drink myself, and I'm very happy to make those experiences. And this, I'm very proud of this. But this is very risky, especially when I am so small, because uh, it's it's easier to take risks when you have 10 hectares than
Mhm.
when you have only 1 hectare. This is why some of those bottles are expensive.
Tell me why you're not interested in scaling up your business.
This is a big question because a lot of my neighbors or friend told me that if I scale up, uh, the problem is at a certain point, I will need to change the way I work. For example, if I have more than 2 hectares, I will need to change the whole thing. I will need to buy tractors and machines to get on the tractors. It will change my approach for sure, because it will change not only the way I work but also the profile of the grapes. The thing I'm very proud of is kind of something that is more than business. For example, when I taste the grapes before the harvest, when I test the grapes, and sometimes with friends and with my employee and with Linda and with also some neighbors, the other growers, we try my grapes and their grapes, and most often we prefer my grapes. You can't measure that. You can't measure the quality of that. It's more on a level like when I use the horse, to do hoeing, to turn
Yeah,
the
to
soil.
till the soil. Yeah.
Yes, I use a horse. The thing is that when you do with a machine, it's better made. Technically, it's better made than a horse. A horse doesn't such a good work. than the tractors. But I still prefer the horse because there's something you can't measure is that now people are kind of used to see that. But when I started, uh, people came from the houses, especially old people
Uh-huh.
with their grandson or granddaughter, and they show this to the younger generations, and I was very proud of that because it's very beautiful, and also for us. Each year to see this one, two, three, four times a year, for me it's very beautiful, and for people who see that it is also. And in fact, I strongly believe in émerveillement.
Huh. How would we say it? Let's just call it magic.
Yeah, yeah. There's a kind of magic that, "Oh, this is so beautiful. This is so, wow," you know? And really believe in that. As I said, we all build the world we want to live
Live
in.
in.
And in
Yeah.
fact, this is very important for me to do the things that way. So if I change the way I work, I will also change all those little things that for me are very, very important. And I'm not ready to change. I could grow up a bit to get 2 hectares, but I don't want to get more.
Tell me about on the opposite side of production, marketing and distribution. How does that work for you? Because I know that your wines are available. I don't want to say all over the world. I know they're available in the U.S. How does this happen?
The wines get a sort of very, very early, a big interest. It was first in Denmark, then in Italy, then in Japan. The US came soon after. I work with importers who buy the wines and represent my wines and distribute them in their country. I have now, yes, 15 importers.
And the
Uh,
importers, they buy your wine and then they mark them up directly?
yeah, yeah. And for example, the US is a specific case because I have one importer, and he works with agents and distributors for each state because each state is very singular. So, for example, there are people that are working California, other working Texas, other working New York, Oregon, Florida, and yeah. But in general, it's I have one importer that represents me in his country with also agents for selling to restaurants and wine bars and sometimes hotels also.
Okay. So a
Yeah.
big channel for your distribution is hospitality then, you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah.
Restaurants, for example. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are developing your brand, obviously you have a website and I imagine social media and some other things like this. When it comes to sort of, marketing, is it up to the distributor? I'm trying to say like who gets the word out?
There's not a lot of communication and marketing. The only thing I do is Instagram because I don't have a lot of time for social networks. I like Instagram because it's very visual, and I don't have a visit card, for example. The visit card are the bottles themselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's made that way, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Are there possibilities for you to do, collaborations or other kind of partnerships in the art world, for example? I know that there are some winemakers that have, I've been to a place in Bordeaux, years ago, and they had a very nice collection, and they had a huge installation where the barrels were and, things like this. Do you consider yourself a collector?
at the beginning, it was not the case. As I told you, art is part of my DNA, and first I wanted to live with things exactly like. having books or having records. I'm not a record collector. I'm not a book collector, but I want to live with the things I love. And for the first things I bought, it was the case. The first things I bought, it was Stephen Parrino edition. He was still living. That work talks about it. It's named Black Flag, and it's about being punk and what is being an anarchist and things like this. It's a selection of texts from a book. It's a very beautiful work. And the other thing is a portrait of Sharon Tate by Peter Brookman, the German photographer. I was attracted by this portrait by Sharon Tate because of her beauty first, and also the fact that the photo was taken soon before she was killed by by members of the Manson family. And also this is very interesting, this kind of duality between beauty and cruelty, and also about things like about a painting by the British artist Gabriel Hartley at Prince de la Valade, and also some punk flyers by Raymond Pettibon, because I have, you know, the story about the fact that get into contemporary art thanks to Raymond Pettibon. And I'm still a big fan of Raymond Pettibon, so I collected some original flyers by Pettibon. The drawings are great, very representative of Pettibon, but also it's flyers of with bands I love, like Suicidal Tendencies, and not only Black Flag, but also Suicidal Tendencies, Saint Vitus,
Minutemen.
yeah,
Minutemen. Yeah.
and also there's this one, you know, there's the Dicks.
Oh, yeah, from Texas.
Yes, and the Dicks are a fantastic punk
Phenomenal.
band. I love
Absolutely
them.
phenomenal.
I
Yeah.
love them.
Yeah.
And it was so perfect. So yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I have I have one with the Descendants and Suicidal Tendencies, and the Nick Heist, and it's very. I can't have it because it's a dick. It's someone showing his dick. It's very petit bon. I love it, and yes, with all the details as well.
Are you still buying art these days?
Yes, and it really became a collection when I tried to buy things that are too expensive for me.
Mm,
When I bought the Parrino, Parrino was still living, and it was cheap at the moment. It was not
yeah. Yeah, at the time.
expensive at all, that like it is at the moment. But it became really. I had the idea, the feeling being kind of a collector when I bought things like a Ryman and a Richard Serra. Small works, but it was. I realized that this is kind of an obsession, which is not only having books or flyers or things like this.
Yeah, it's very curious because, we have a collection and it's always curious as to the sort of, well, why? And it is nice to sort of live with these things that you sort of see every day and, you evolve, they sort of remain constant. That's kind of the thing. That's a little bit ironic about it. There's this assumption that, oh, yeah, every time I look at it, I see something new. Well, the truth is, the object never changes. You change over time.
Exactly,
So you're
exactly.
the one that's changing, not the object. So it's a very peculiar mirror to look at. But sometimes I'll talk to collectors on the podcast and I'll ask them, "Well, why own something if you could just see it?" But there is something different about living with something. There's a certain scale, there's a materiality, you see it all the time, you grow attached to them. I mean, we have sculptures in the house that honestly at Christmas time we put Christmas decorations on them. You know? And it's fine, they just become part of your life, and since it's so enriching and maybe the artist, maybe you have a bunch of catalogs, It's just part of this dynamic system where an object is just part of it. What I often say is that one of the big values of art is its social value in that you talk about it. You meet people and you ask questions and you interact with it, and it's a focal point of a broader conversation,
Yeah.
and that's where the meaning is.
Yeah, it represents also a lot about us because kind of a collection could be a kind of a portrait. Uh,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, for example, um, you know the Petit Blanc flyers, the Parrino, also I have here an edition by Steven Shearer.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, these are very linked to this punk and metal culture. And at the beginning, it was just that things that those things that surround me are really into this culture.
We talked about something interesting, recently, and that was about this idea of being challenged, you know? Let's think about, food, for example. You can be nourished, it could be comforting, you could have a craving for, I don't know, French fries or candy or whatever, so some things are easily satisfying. And it's the same thing, I don't know, when you watch a TV show. Sometimes you just want to watch something dumb and empty your mind and be entertained. But I think there's something to be said for the pleasure in being challenged. And we can see this in art that challenges us, and you can feel it in music that's very challenging. I get a huge kick out of that. I think people that are interested in, conceptual and post-conceptual art and the sort of
Mhm.
narrative around art, we also like the challenge.
Yeah,
Um, but I think there's something to be said for that even, like, in the culinary world. Just this past summer, my older daughter and we went to one of those crazy, restaurants in Copenhagen,
yeah.
okay? It was phenomenal, but I promise to you, I was definitely challenged. You know?
And this is very, very important because what I told about the experience, the beauty and the importance of the experience. And this is also the case with art and the case with food and wine, because I really find very unique the fact that you can have something in a restaurant one day in your life, and you will remember all the rest of your life. You will remember the moment, the people you were with, the particularly food you had, the moment, and this is very beautiful. This is very it has a value. For example, for a wine also, you can have a wine one day, and it's such a discovery,
Mhm.
something so new for you that are so beautiful, so perfect that you will uh, remember all your life. Exactly like the moment I saw an exhibition for the first time in my life, or the first time. Yes, those kinds of feelings and experiences are really important.
Well, let's talk about challenging wine because I know that natural wines are particular. I remember the first time I tried a natural wine, it was very, particular. It was a little bit effervescent. It had like a sort of strong acidity to it. It was definitely not like, your dad's wine, so to speak. So maybe you can address that a little bit. There is a peculiar flavor profile. I really enjoy the white natural wines. I think they pair very well, really easy drinkability. I personally have a harder time with some of the red natural wines.
Hmm.
They start to be a little bit more almost like a cider, cidery kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
profile, acid based. In the sort of high-end beers, we see that now with the sour beers. Have you tried some of these things? Or natural fermentation, I think is also another word for it?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, you can have this that, in fact. natural wines are very close to the primary matter, as I said. Sometimes it's just fermented grape juice. And in fact, the other thing is that when you don't protect the wine with sulfites, you will have a new world. In my case, for example, I feel the sulfites when I drink a wine with sulfites, and this I really dislike. The beauty working with no sulfites also brings a beauty to a wine that is, for example, what we call acidité volatile. It's oxidation. You will have an oxidation which creates very beautiful. It's a kind of acidity that the grapes and the juice naturally develops. Sometimes we say, when you don't sulfite a vines, it will become a vinegar. Absolutely not, because it's very difficult to do a vinegar. And this oxidation could be very, very beautiful on some wines. And also the fact is that, the wine also could be resilient. I mean, there's a part of the oxidation that kind of destroy a bit the wine. If we think like we used to think when we did the wines in the 70s, 90s, 80s, 90s, with very protected wine. When you go natural, you have very interesting things appearing by the nature of the wine itself. And sometimes the wine helps himself. He kind of find his own defenses
Mhm.
to resist oxidation, and this creates something sometimes surprising.
Mhm.
So sometimes also disturbing. Those wines are great. Of course, some are not, but at least they are very safe because the sulfites are from petrol, and I
Mhm.
don't want to put petrol in my wines at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, yeah. And it opens things up to, going back to the idea of being challenged. I mean, they're particular flavor profiles, and as an adult, when you start to develop a palate,
Yeah,
you like this idea of having a new experience or, sort of feeling something that you haven't felt before. And we mentioned art can lend itself to that, very naturally, but music can. And we all know that, food and wine, if you have an open mind, you can be rewarded for that curiosity and for being open to something. Sometimes it takes time. The first time I tried sushi, I remember I was a little, this is weird, you know, but
yeah,
you develop a taste,
yeah. Sure, sure, sure,
and
sure.
that's the case, obviously in wine and in food, but also in art and in music. Being challenged, having an open mind can, lead to some pretty interesting returns on happiness. Maybe we can look at it
Yeah,
that
yeah.
way.
It's like Mozart. Everybody loves Mozart, but when you learn what is Mozart in terms of musicology, it becomes even better. And it's the case for wine. If you have an education for wine, you discover the potential and it's infinite.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, this idea of time and place, and that can sort of help fill in a narrative. To go back to music, we can talk about California punk in the 80s. Oh, Southern California punk. Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah,
Let's go. Orange County, California punk in 1990, and you can sort of get to that specificity with wines. You can say, this is a Chardonnay from Loire Valley in 2015. So you can start to identify, art, music, wine, whatever, even certain kinds of food by where it comes from, when it was made, how it was made, what's it made out of. It gives you a lot of information and that enriches your experience that much more.
yeah. In fact, in my case, there's something related to punk with wine in my approach. Let's say, for example, um, When I began, I was more familiar with artist studios than wineries. You know, I studied with one of my uncle who was one of the pioneers being organic in my area.
Mhm.
And when I started, I had the default that yes, I was closer to artist studios than wineries, and I started by experience doing things and not being ready enough uh, to proceed. Exactly like when you don't really know how to play guitar perfectly, but you go on stage and I had this feeling. This is also why terroir approach was very safe for me to begin with Delalot because it was a way to begin the simple way. Now with Maison Jérôme Lefevre, it's more based on exercises or the style or experiments, and now it's a bit challenging
Mhm.
for me. Um,
Mhm.
but there was something like punk approach at the beginning. Perhaps it's still the case. There was a room in which I had the possibility to do an office, but I decided not to do a traditional tasting room because tasting rooms in wineries are always very boring. Even if it's very beautifully designed, I think it's not something which is very living. So I didn't want that. I wanted to show works of artists I like, doing kind of exhibitions there, not necessarily selling the works. For example, at the moment, there are paintings by Valentin de Manger, and these somebody could buy because they are it's possible to buy those two paintings. But I have also installed at the moment a Blerter mine, which is mine, in fact, and I have. Yes, it could be something to be on sale, but it could be exhibition. There's no rules, particular rules about that.
So no tasting room. If you have somebody to come visit your place, they end up in essentially an art gallery to taste the wine.
Kind of, kind of. Yeah, 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 yeah. But it's also a place to sit and to watch art. I mean, to taste the wine. I like to discuss and to explain the way I work into the cellar, trying the wines and also showing the different cuvées and things like this. And not sometimes we're walking with the glasses, and but we have also this space where we can sit and discuss. And this I like. This is something I love.
Well, it seems like you carved out something really, really unique, and it's amazing that it came from, initially a passion for what did we go? We started with motorcycles
Yeah.
and the aesthetic behind that, and that led to being enamored by, the aesthetics of metal and punk music, and that led you to art, and a lot of that thinking sort of went back into your vocation as a winemaker. It's kind of fascinating. It all makes sense when you sort of lay it out like that.
I really believe in the experience, and this is why a wine has a value. I am, as we all are, the results of all our experiences since we are very young, since we are a child, we were a child to now. We had experiences through the parents, through the friends, through the school, the people we working, the people we met, the films we love, the art we love, the music we love. All these experiences, good or bad, build each of us. We are all the results of all our experiences. And I also think this is uh, the most precious thing, the most important thing we are. We don't really own the things. A house will survive us. We don't possess it because we live it when we leave the world. But our experience are really the true individual thing we have. And of course, the fact that I've been so affected by these cultures you mentioned about punk and metal, and also motorcycles surrounding my some of my uncles and aunts, and my because it's really a biker family. And I even have an uncle who is the president of Hells Angels club here in France.
That's amazing.
And in fact, it's natural that all those experiences uh, have an influence on the way I do the wine. Of course, because it can't be another way. This is also why sometimes I put some of the references, very precise references, into the wine, and into the labels, and the name of the cuvées and things like this.
Give us an example.
Ah, one of the best examples that comes to my mind is a cuvée named "Playing with Fire." Because it's very difficult. In my case, at the harvest, I don't know which wine it will be, because it's a long process, and I am very open to different scenarios. So in fact, from the start, I don't know what it will become. But once you have a wine, you have to find a name, and you have to find a label for that bottle. And in fact, it's kind of difficult, especially in the case of Maison Jérôme Lefevre. There is a succession of a lot of cuvées, so I have to be creative to find a lot of titles and the labels and things like this. So I have this cuvée named "Playing with Fire." The name is from a song by Godflesh. You know the
Love Godflesh. Amazing.
yeah, I love
So your champagne is named after a Godflesh song.
exactly.
Continue. God bless you.
Yeah, yeah. That song "Playing with Fire" that I loved by the recent Godflesh, and the label, I wrapped the pallets with a black plastic. So I have those columns of pallets wrapped with black plastic, and it appeared to me that, wow, those foils are very, very beautiful, and it reminds me Stephen Parrino.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was like a Parrino, so I took pictures of this, and when I had to find a label for that wine, I told myself, "Hey, what not using those pictures for the label?"
Well, that's amazing because there's a creative act sort of after the wine is produced. You have to give it a name, not unlike,
Yeah,
a painter, naming an abstract painting, for example, you give it a name and you have to, give it some sort of iconography. You need a label.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Artwork collaborations on labels are, very, very old. I want to say it's Chateau de Rothschild. Did they have a tradition of, I don't know, Andy Warhol and
Yeah,
Chagall and all kinds
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
artists did their
Yeah,
labels. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
some did very, very early. Uh, and I do this in a very, very personal way. There's a cuvée, a Coteau Champenois Blanc, which is a crazy, crazy Coteau, because it's very low in the alcohol, but very complex, very incredible, very aerial, soft, but very, very powerful in terms of complexity. And for this wine, I did that time a real collaboration with Steven Girard.
Oh, nice, nice. The Canadian artist. Yeah, yeah,
Because there is a painting named Harry. It's a teenager with the long hair,
yeah,
and we
yeah.
we don't see his face. And I love this painting since a long time. So I asked him to use it for the label. This is kind of a collaboration also.
Are your children interested in what you do?
Yes, my son is very interested in the business part of it.
Ah, God bless
Uh,
him. Sounds like you have a future partner.
Yeah, he wants to develop things, and my daughter is very young.
Yeah.
She's 12, so
Yeah. How old is your son now?
17. He will be in 2 months. He will be 18.
Will he be working with you this summer, for example?
Yes, he did 2 summers helping me, and also it's kind of we do it with the family when we do a tirage, the bottling or the disgorgement for the champagnes. Sometimes I do also with Linda and the children, especially when it's a small disgorgement or bottling.
What advice would you give to a young person in the age of artificial intelligence where, you know, the machines are taking over? I feel that there's very, very few industries that are kind of safe. I think honestly, the food and beverage industry is one of them. This cannot really be replaced. We still have to eat real food made by real people, etc. So what advice would you give to somebody, a young person who is interested in these sort of hybrid industries where it's creative, it's about, farming, it's about business and distribution, it's about developing a brand. What advice would you give to somebody who's considering a sort of traditional industry?
It's difficult to say because artificial intelligence uh, is very helpful. I love it. It would be great if this gives us a better knowledge about, especially the soil. I mean, because there's something with human intelligence in general. I mean, um, I don't think it's very intelligent from human being to, to destroy the soils and the seas the way we do, because this is our limit, because we are able to do a lot of crazy things, crazy airplanes, crazy networks. We are able to go in space, but the thing we know the less is the soil we work on every day. Sorry. I think this is only future we have, and we still have a lot to learn from that.
It's a great place to end, Jérôme. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, then. Thank you again. Take care.